It's Dan from the Mike James Rock Show. I've got Issues with me here, and we'll go from the big hair gentleman over there. Introduce yourself first, sir.
What's up? I'm Sky. I play bass.
I'm Tyler. I sing.
I'm Josh. I play drums.
I'm AJ. I play guitar.
And you guys are over in the UK with Don Broco and Neck Deep at the moment.
Yes, we are. That's where we are.
Can I hit you with the obvious question of how's it going? You know, that usual stuff.
Great, obviously. This tour is great. The bill is sick.
How's it being with, because you guys are sort of on one of my favourite type of lineups where there's not just one style to it. How are you finding converting the Don Broco fans as the opener? Because that's always a bit of an interesting one.
The first night was a little rough.
Was
Lots
it?
of staring.
Yeah, we decided, maybe to play more of the hits, at least like what people listen to on the Spotify and stuff. And then we realized quickly that that's kind of a little bit more of a low energy set. So then the second night we just played more heavy stuff, and the Broco fans were into that. So it's definitely a diverse crowd.
It's a hard crowd to control. I mean, because as an opener, your job is really to get the energy where it needs to be for the for the support and for the headliner. We're used to doing that, but maybe not as the first band of the night. So it's kind of like trying to get the crowd to break a sweat for us. There's a little bit more of a challenge, but honestly, I'm finding myself in a good position to really try. You know what I mean? Like to try harder. So it was good. The second night.
Our food out here for
sure.
For our lunch.
Getting to work, but yeah, they're getting they're starting to warm up to us. And I saw that the second night. It was tight.
It's interesting what you guys said that you were leading with like sort of the Spotify popularity, but you found that didn't transition live. That's actually quite surprising in some ways, because you would think that the most popular streamed tracks would actually be the ones that you get the best response on. Or do you think it's just literally that's what people like click on first and that's why the streams are high?
I think the disconnect is I can hold it. I think the disconnect is our top songs on Spotify. You have to know.
Okay.
Like kind of like they're like sing-along songs, because people like kind of come for the breakdown, stay for Tyler, or vice versa, depending on what kind of fan base they're part of.
Yeah.
And I think those don't come across first listen live as well as some of our deeper cuts with like heavier sounds, basically. So like you have to know, or I guess like knowing Mad at Myself would help you enjoy that song a lot more than knowing Blue Wall or something.
I was going to say that, like, I feel like Issues is not the kind of band that's meant to be seen at a 30-minute set, you know what I mean? Like, we've just, over the past, 3 years, we've done a lot of headliners, and we've done a lot of heavy-hitting, festival sets.
Yeah.
And I think that this show, because of Broco's energy and their style, their lightheartedness, I think it called for a festival set from us, which we had to kind of rearrange. But I feel like Issues is the kind of band you want to see for a nice long hour set, because we do have, the sing-alongs and the top Spotify hits and stuff, but those aren't really the kind of songs you want to jam into a 30-minute set, because you need proper time to set those songs up and really really feed it to the crowd, spoon feed it until they really, learn to absorb it. So, yeah, I mean that's just something we got to get used to. It's
It's quite fascinating because a lot of people that haven't done the headline sets don't really know what to put in there. But for you guys, you've almost it's nice to hear that you had an interesting reaction to what you thought, but then completely went, nope, we're going to change it, switch it up. It shows that you're not trying to force people into what you think that they should have.
It doesn't usually end well.
No, it doesn't, but be surprised. Some bands still trying to go, you're going to listen to this and you're going to enjoy it.
Right. Well, I think we are, our catalog is diverse enough to where we can, if we need to switch things up, we can do that, which is cool.
Well, it is fun watching various online people try and put you into a subgenre, because I hate subgenres. They're just pointless to me. And watching everybody trying to describe your band is like, no, that's my favourite kind of band.
I like to think that each album, especially our new album, have probably there's probably 3 clusters of songs that are different subgenres. You know what I mean?
Is that the album that you're writing, or the one that's
we've just finished?
Just finished.
It's not out yet, so.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about that? Because I understand that there may have been some issues with the direction of this album,
there's always an issue with the direction of something with this band. It was because there's 4 guys here that have completely different tastes, and there's usually there's like a few strings that we all kind of pull on together,
Yeah.
but we all have such different tastes and styles, which is, like I was talking about all the subgenres of our music, and goes into our live shit too, because each person wants to play 3 completely different songs than the other person. So we got to try to make it all work.
Right,
but
right.
yeah, new album is. What did you hear?
Well,
What have you heard?
I was going to say there was, shall we say, direction differences that caused that maybe somebody isn't sat here that should be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was admittedly just like a long time coming. Even
Okay.
we ran into some of that in the last record, and we personally felt like that record ended up suffering because of that, like musical, or I guess our musical integrity, a little bit.
Okay.
And so as we were approaching the next record, it kind of became more clear.
Yeah, because the feedback was generally quite positive from both sides of the party as I was doing my sort of pre-interview research.
I mean, we caught our fresh batch of, haters, I guess. I know that there are a lot of people who have become so emotionally invested in our band.
Yeah.
I think, and sometimes I feel like they're a little too emotionally invested in our band, like the faces of this band, more than the music, which our number one mission statement, like our number one principle from the day we started writing music together, was that the music would always come first.
Yeah.
And that didn't matter. So the music had, like he said, started to suffer a bit because we felt each other growing apart. Like we couldn't collaborate as much because there were a lot of frustrations and how the music was being bogged down, you know what I mean? And me especially, like having to try and excel like my writing and my melodies and stuff, and only to kind of pass parts over to somebody who might not deliver it with that same passion.
Yeah.
So it caused me to pull off the writing a bit, because I just felt like it was like I was wasting all my best juices, you know what I mean? And then I feel like the decline in like the quality of the music caused each band member to want to, for lack of a better term, show off a bit more, which made for a very
Overcompensating everything.
overcompensate. So it made for a very it made for a different kind of album, which got us a lot of respect amongst
Very
musicians.
progressive.
Yeah.
Very nerdy, music nerds and like composers and stuff like that really appreciated our last album, but we felt like as a band that, like, I don't know.
Well, bottom line, like, we just do better. Like, our last album, like, we all enjoy it on a, like, right brain kind of thing, but we wanted to go for a more, like, emotional sort of impact.
Yeah.
And this is the first time, our new album that hasn't been released, it's the first time we've all been kind of on one wave, instead of, like, playing with all these different waves. Like, instead of, like, okay, now we have a country song, now we have, like, a metal song, now we have a this or that. Now it's, like, it actually sounds like the band,
Like a coherent piece. Sort
Yes.
of thing.
I think,
Absolutely.
long story short, this is the album we've always wanted to make.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I think
sorry, go ahead.
well, no, just as the 4 of us now are capable to do that, and there's no boundaries, and there's no honestly no hard feelings either.
Well, I was gonna say,
it's honestly just about the music.
Well, I was reading and paraphrasing what was said by the other person, is that you guys had a chat and almost said to the member that's not here, is you don't want to hold them back in their creativity either, as much as he didn't want to hold you guys back. And
I don't think he totally sees it that way, but we definitely saw
he
it that
definitely
way.
said it online.
It was a mutual, like, this, like, we're not good for each other kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like if he doesn't care, and we, then he's like dragging us down, and then like if we're writing music that doesn't support him as well in the way that he wants to make, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And people like kind of, it's funny because people kind of segment it like, oh, they lost their screamer, so that means they're not going heavy, when in reality, like, I mean, that was almost where the disconnect was, is that like we wanted to keep the melody obviously, but like heavier and heavier and heavier, you know what I mean? And like, I mean, it's not as clear cut as that, basically. It's not like he represents like the heavy. Like the heavy more or less is represented by AJ, who's still in the band.
Yeah.
And AJ, since writing Headspace, has seen Meshuggah, so if that tells you anything.
So I understand one of you guys have taken on the vocals as well, the dirty side.
I mean, AJ's like taking on the majority of like those prominent screaming parts.
Is that to keep your voice nice and sort of...
Well, I mean, it's to diversify the band. Everybody sitting here can, to some extent, do aggressive vocals, and so it kind of just proves the point is that you have one person that's a bit of a weak link to like the overall integrity of the band when there's 4 people who can carry that weight. And not to say like Michael, and we're gonna say Michael because I don't want to keep saying the guy that's not here.
Fair enough.
He was our best friend, and he was a very passionate performer.
Yeah.
But maybe not such a passionate like writer.
Yeah.
And musician. So, we're not to say that he wasn't, didn't give a lot of, that he didn't bring something to the table, because I think his role in the live show was very important. But so that's, not to be discredited. But yeah, everybody here pretty much does vocals. AJ takes on the majority of the prominent parts, and that's something we're not going to let go of. Obviously, like we have fans who have literally changed their lives around some of the songs that we wrote, and we want to make sure that they're honored when we do these songs live, so we delegate.
That's our identity, that again, like you said, you lose a screamer, that doesn't really change how we write or what we are as a band. Most of the heaviness was truly represented by AJ and then Sky as well. So
because myself and the gentleman behind the camera were geeking out about this on the way down, going, because we've seen a couple of bands that have got rid of the predominant screamer, and somebody else has taken it on just purely so you can give the back catalogue in the same way. Even if you guys, obviously it's not been released yet, so I don't know how much screaming is on the new one, but I love the fact that you guys instantly made sure that you could still play your back catalogue to everybody, and that's a brilliant thing. Have you found that the stage sort of presence or dynamic has changed having one less member on there?
I think it's changed a lot, and we didn't really tour. We took pretty much this past year off to write, finish the album, and we only did we did one run in Australia. That was our first debut as a 4-piece, and then we did Warped Tour, and obviously we felt like we have a lot to prove, just like you were talking about. So the dynamic has changed a lot. I think it's something we're still figuring out, but I personally love it. I think it lets everyone explore.
Breathe.
Yeah, well, it lets them explore too a lot more.
We've been able to just have a little more freedom, not so much like. Obviously, I think having 2 frontmen has always been a challenge. We made it work, but like there's obviously a lot more freedom. And I don't want it to sound like, oh, we're just like, yeah, man, it's just so much more fun now that we're a 4-piece. But it really does change, because I think over the last year or so, we've kind of lost a bit of the hunger, and we've lost a bit of that quality live, and I think we've been challenged to gain it back tenfold. Another common misconception about our band and about our new album is that just because, like they said, like the screamer like carries the heavy element of the band, when really it's like, dude, we've got songs we had to bring in 8-string guitars to like pull off, because they're so low in tuning and they're so heavy. But the thing is, people will sit and say, oh, Issues is selling out, they're going pop, and it's like, you have no reference, you haven't heard anything. But if they want to call us sellouts and say that we're selling out, but like the truth is, like, we'd be selling out if we hadn't made this change, because we would continue to make the same music, because we know that's safe, that's what people are going to buy, and we'll just keep making the same money and doing the same thing. So like,
issues by numbers,
exactly. If we, this whole thing, and taking a year off hiatus was probably the hardest like financial plummet we've ever endured as a band, because we had no way of making money except for just writing and like driving Uber while we were home. And like, no shame, honestly, but like that, so people don't realize that we risked our entire career for this change, and if it works, then we'll be the happiest we've ever been as a band, and we'll have that integrity that we started with. But if we don't, then there's no way people can fucking call us sellouts, because we'll crash and burn.
I find the concept of people selling out and fans not being into it being really strange, because it's like, we want bands to play bigger and bigger venues. Right. We want you to have a big capacity headline tour. Yeah. So is it selling out, or is it just being a decent band?
Well, I think the main thing with the whole sellout thing is, at least for me with bands I like, is it's usually intent. Yeah. If I can listen to a record and hear the intent and like hear what they're going for, is it genuine, And I think a lot of times either it comes across or it doesn't. Either it's genuine or it's not. Either they're trying to be something that they are, or they're trying to be something that they're not.
It sounds like you guys are just wanting to be yourselves from everything that we've talked about.
We are willing to risk literally our entire career to make sure that we're just ourselves.
Yeah.
That's fantastic because, as you can imagine, there's in England quite a big band that's done that recently that's managed to divide the entirety of their fan base being Bring Me the Horizon.
Good for them.
Yeah, that album is great.
Yeah,
It's a
and the
great
thing
album.
was I was reading some stuff about so similar to what you guys are saying is they're happy because it's the first album since Suicide Season that
Oh, yeah.
they've been called divisive, and I imagine you guys would be the same. If people only like a certain part of your back catalogue, that's cool, that's for them, that's what they're there for, and that's what your music's there for. But you're not going to keep writing the same stuff just so that you fit into
Right.
what people sort of expect. Because otherwise, as you say, it becomes by numbers, and then you start doing live performance by numbers, and then people won't be into what you guys are doing. Whereas it sounds like you're going to be attacking this album cycle with such energy that you're going to sell people the idea of how much you like this music rather than kind
Right.
of anything else. And anybody that wants to call you a sellout after that, I mean, kind of idiots, in my
Right.
opinion.
Honestly, I think, our sound guy, Chris, has this interesting theory that selling out is a myth. Just
Yeah.
because, if you sell out, then if you try to sell out, then it's by definition not successful because people aren't dumb. People aren't emotionally dumb.
No.
Like, they can tell if you're faking it.
Yep.
So if you put out a pop album when you don't want to write a pop album, then people can tell your album's not going to do well. But if you put out a pop album where that's literally just the album that you want to make,
Yeah.
people can tell and people will like it and it'll do well. So, are you selling out by just being who you are? No.
Well, it also depends because for me, I mean, I've liked you guys since the first album because of the pop elements in it.
Right.
Because I'm a metalcore kid through and through from when Killswitch dropped their first album, and I love these sort of digressions that bands like yourselves have done over the time where you've taken the idea of it and gone, well, no, we're not going to sit there and just do sort of your standard widdly sort of guitars and stuff like that. And it was what got me into you guys originally, because somebody sort of handed it to me. They're like, I'm really curious what you'll think of this, and then couldn't believe when I was like, best thing I've heard in a long time.
Awesome.
And it's because of the elements which, for me, have always been there in the band. So if you guys are just excelling at stuff that you've done in times
Right.
past, but exploring it, finding out where it goes, then
I think our new stuff is going to create that moment again for a lot of people.
nice.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
I was gonna say that same thing. It's like the way people felt confused but intrigued, and then eventually emotionally attached to our first album.
Yeah.
I feel like we've naturally just found ourselves in that big wow
Yeah.
again because most importantly, everything we've done on this new album is honest.
Yeah.
And we started the process of elimination at 48 songs, more or less, some finished, some just ideas.
Not all were good.
2.5 years of writing.
Yeah,
That's
2.5 years of
incredible.
writing. And so it was, 48 songs, whether it was just a voice memo or, whatever. I mean, we started with a big catalog, and the final batch of songs that made the album might be just the truest, most honest songs, whether they're deep, sad, feel good, sexual, whatever. That's kind of what that was that was the whole thing. We started Issues on was issues is we've got issues good, we've got issues bad. We want to make catalogs of songs that are for everybody because not everybody's sad, not everybody needs that that salvation in music. Some people just want good music to listen to, and so
Music to fuck to. That's actually the album title.
I was just about to
Music
say
to fuck to.
What'll be really fun is that at some point, because you guys are always up for an interview, I reckon 2 years down the line, we're going to be having a conversation about this moment, and you guys are going to be sat there going, so glad we made this move, because when you actually follow up with what you want to do, as you say, it sells. It's just, I imagine you guys are probably quite nervous right now, whether or
We're
not...
terrified.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to be completely honest. Obviously, we believe in everything we're doing, clearly, and we love the record, but it's terrifying. But
Because you want people to understand it, not necessarily like it, but understand why you did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
the whole what's the word I'm looking for? The whole thing about sophomore slump, I think, is very real.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that our last album, did bad things for us. I mean, it kept us afloat. But like you said, as fans should want bands to keep growing and excelling, so they can be like, I was there at the beginning, and like I'm proud as a fan. I feel like I was part of the journey, and I think that our last album just kept us, at the same place.
Yeah.
It held people over, but we didn't go anywhere from it, and that's okay, because we do this is our career.
Yeah.
And we survive to do it, what I mean, and it makes sense. But we want to, someday enjoy the fruit of our labor, knowing that we built a legacy, and also something we can retire off of. So that was the biggest halt with the last record, was just we didn't feel like we went anywhere other than just kind of we just kept cruising. But there were a couple songs, there were a couple songs that people loved and connected with, but there was just not enough honesty, because like we said before, we were just overcompensating any way we could. And
I think we got comfortable, honestly, because the first record, thankfully did well for us, and then we were like, oh well, we'll
just do that again.
Yeah, and then it's just that's not the way it works, and I think we learned that the hard way, and I think honestly it was absolutely imperative that happened to us in order to make this record.
Well, from our perspective, because we had you guys slam dunk when you were in UK last time, which was either at the end of the album cycle or just the next tour afterwards. Mm-hmm. Your energy was completely different in interview. It was kind of like, oh, we'll have a chat, talk about the album. Whereas this, there's a message behind it, and that's very different.
Yeah,
so,
you can't fake that.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think the interview's already about 3 times as long as the last one, because you guys have just got so much to say. And
I think we might have even possibly hated each other at one point.
Yeah,
so you might have got caught in that web.
Well, I got to be honest, you are smiling a bit more than the last interview, if you don't mind me saying.
Thanks.
But it's great, because that's why we would love to come back and talk to you guys and find out these messages.
AJ's still not talking that much, though. That's just his personality.
Portrait genius over here.
He did ask at the start, which is, in case anybody's wondering why I'm not talking directly to AJ, is just so that you don't get put on the spot. Like now. I think that's probably a great point to wrap up, because I could literally talk about this beyond anybody's sort of interest levels to you guys, because it's just.
I mean, you could always edit it, but just keep it for your own your own catalog.
But no, we're definitely what we'll do is we'll make sure we touch back in with you guys either on the album cycle when it's back over here, or post it, and we'll make sure that we get back and talk about the feedback and how it's gone for you guys, because I would love to have that interview. Talk
beautiful.
about how everything's gone.
However it goes, I'm sure that'll be a very interesting hindsight kind of point of view.
Yeah.
And we can even watch this interview and see how you guys feel about it. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us
so much.
From the Mike James Rock Show.
Thanks for watching my interview with Issues. If you want to catch our previous interviews with them, or subscribe so that you've got our future interview that we talked about, hit the like, subscribe and notification bell. Thanks very much.